Dealing with Austin Entertainment Management, and I'm here today with Robert Dunlap. And we were having a really interesting conversation on Messenger, and I felt like this was something that you guys should hear about because a lot of the problems I've been hearing about lately are about not being able to find the right band members. And once you get everybody together, like progress slows almost to a stop. And it's absolutely frustrating. I get it. So we're going to talk about how can we make that easier on yourself. Maybe this is something you haven't thought about before, or maybe this just seems like something that's really difficult. So I want to bring you a story, a different insight. And Robert just talks about it so awesome. So, Robert, thank you for joining me here today.
It's my pleasure.
Okay, so we were talking about going into the studio and writing or recording songs. And so go ahead and start from where we were just talking about as far as progress and how fast you can go by yourself versus having other people.
Okay. Well, first of all, one of the major points that I consider is that when you're building a project, you have to think of it as like the skeleton of a building, or just a building. As you have to start from the foundation and begin building up. If you do something that's perhaps out of place, it could compromise the integrity of the building, of the strength of it, the strength of the project. If you have too many complex parts in it, that could make it more difficult to repair or to deal with in later times. And this is, very much in relation to creating a project with music. In my most recent project, Cathedral of Darkness, which is a 7-song EP/album, as you will, I started off with the rhythm tracks. I had my stuff together, and I worked with a phenomenal producer named Harold Marco. And one of the major statements that he always made about me is that when I came to the studio, I knew exactly what I wanted. I knew the time signature, so that all we had to do was press record. That was it. So when you deal with more people, you have to make sure that they are appropriately motivated and that they have that same burning desire. And if they don't, you can forget it. It's going to the quality of your project is going to be basically proportional to the motivation and the commitment of the rest of the people involved in the project.
So what you're saying basically is you're going to have one person that's like, yeah, let's go, 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 let's get this done. And meanwhile, you're going to have somebody on the opposite end of the spectrum because they're not as tapped in with their why do they want to do this. They're just like, yeah, I'll get to it when I get to it. I'm sorry, I don't have that part recorded, right?
That's correct. Absolutely.
So what do you think? Like, not everyone's in a situation where, they can go into the studio and play all the parts or do all this stuff on their own. So in that kind of situation, like, what do you suggest people try to do maybe before forming a band?
Well, first of all, one of the essential parts of it, at least in my mind, is to have a direction. You need to know exactly what burns inside of you. Okay. Anytime I've seen somebody who has been extraordinarily successful, the kind of performer that when they get on stage, people's minds are blown. That doesn't come from just throwing things together and oh well, I think I'm going to have a couple of drinks before I come on stage here. Kind of loosen up here. It comes from having direction and knowing exactly what you want and being able to be extremely selective with the people that you surround yourself with. If you surround yourself with people who would just, yeah, man, I think I'd like to do that. No, that's not going to work. If you notice that somebody is not punctual, if you notice that somebody is, just a sort of, take it or leave it kind of person, that's not going to work. Your job is to get that burning passion or the music in your head as close to the way that you hear it in your head, um, as you can on that recording. And you can't do that if you have, people who are just wishy-washy. So you need to find people to work with, and don't be afraid to lay down the ground rules in the very beginning. Be very nice, respectful. Do not be brash with anybody. That's not going to get anywhere in the long run. But just say, hey, this is what I'm looking for, and if you can satisfy that, wonderful. But if not, I appreciate your direction in life as well.
So, do you feel like there's kind of an order to things if you want to do things faster? Like in my past experience, we got the band together, we started writing songs, we like kind of got the songs together. And then the first thing everybody wants to do is go out and play a live show. Like even before anything's like recorded or like, okay, we got songs, like let's go play in front of people. But I kind of felt like it should have been the other way around. Do you think there's a certain way to do things, or what's your opinion on this?
That is an excellent question. I'm glad that you brought that up, because one of the most fantastic parts about this whole equation is that there's a fine balance between chaos and order. Is that when you have okay, this is specifically within the context of being risky and trying things out, but understanding what the consequences of failure. Okay, prime example: there are musicians who know themselves well enough to know that they can get on stage and improvise lead and be very good at it, and wow the audience every single time, because they just simply have that kind of power. It comes from years of training. But remember something: in order to get to that point, they had to have some sort of order. Um, and then once they got to a certain point, they could let loose, and their mind already knew subconsciously where to go. They were all over the place, and they just wrapped circles around the audience. And on the other hand, you had situations where people were not prepared. They come in, they don't know the tempo of the song when they go in to record. They don't know, exactly what they do. They don't have their stuff together, and moreover, they're just not. The song is not tightly within their fingers or within their voice. So they're going unprepared. They're basically going to a gunfight with a dagger and hoping that they'll have good luck.
And this kind of goes back to what you were saying with, having that direction and having a plan, because if you laid out that plan, you might see that, oh, you know what, guys, we got to spend a little bit more time practicing and actually developing the songs that we've written together before we go and spend time in the studio and waste a ton of money, because once we got there, we realized we didn't really know our songs.
That's correct. That's correct. Everything, and a lot of this stuff has to be planned out. When I set out to do this album, I knew that there was money on the line, and that I had to make sure that people were well compensated. So in order to do that, I had to make sure that I kept a tight budget, and in order to do that, I had to know my stuff by the time I went in there. I would improvise on a lot of things, but I had the confidence to know that I would like the end result if I did.
So, if you were to give advice to the musicians out there that are listening to this, who are thinking about recording and going into the studio, what should they know before they go?
Well, first of all, um, if they're in a band, they should already be working with people who they know have a good work ethic and who are going to work with them. They should start off with the skeleton of the music itself, and and know what they're going to do as soon as they go into the studio. They need to know the tempo. They need to know, basically with few arbitrary factors. Leave the arbitrary factors to some improvisational lead guitar or improvisation with an instrument with in the hands of a musician that is that is trained enough to do it. But otherwise, they need to meticulously put together their plan so that when they go into the studio, they can spend as little time as possible, because there are some studios that will just sort of dilly dally around, and you've got to keep everybody on, because this is all about money, and whatever money you spend extra that is unnecessary is less money that you'll have for advertising and or whatever else.
Well, Robert, I want to thank you for your input and insight today. And I want to remind everybody that at Austin Entertainment Management, we're here to give you the education and the resources to learn more about how you build that plan, how to figure out what the right order is for you with the right dynamic of people that you're trying to work with. And then as you grow, know who are the right people to build your team with. So I am Heidelin with Austin Entertainment Management. Robert, thank you so much for being here with me today.
My pleasure.